Colonel Kochhar, you have no doubt also served in frontline areas like J&K and the Northeast. I hear you also faced the same thing when you wanted a Canadian visa.
I have my personal experience in the sense that I had applied for my visa on 8th of Feb. And the sequence of events which have taken place thereafter, the 17th I get a letter for biometrics, 22nd the biometrics is done, 28th Feb biometrics is completed. Thereafter, on 26th May, I am asked for additional information which you had been referring now, the date of promotion, the appointments held, operational areas where you served and all. So it was very difficult to give me all that information because that is in the national interest that I would need to disclose to anyone. So I simply gave a certificate that the information sought for cannot be given, keeping in view the national interest of my country. And thereafter, on 18th July, I got a mail that they have received my additional input and they are processing it. And till date, now 7 months have elapsed. I have no input whether I'll be getting my visa, I'll not be getting my visa, is it being rejected?
Unbelievable.
And I'm actually in a confused state of mind as of now.
This is absolutely unbelievable. And Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor who's with us, he's one of the few journalists who actually reported this story over 10 years ago. Gaurav, I'm going to come to you on that question in just a moment because I'm still reeling in shock that this has been allowed to continue for so long. But I want to go to Air Commodore Kedar Thaakar, who has also faced this. Air Commodore, we saw your tweet in response to our broadcast highlighting this issue. Take us through what you faced, sir.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, so very kind of you to have picked up this issue, which is not really being done by anybody else.
Thank you, sir.
You know, my brother-in-law is a Canadian citizen. He's been residing for last 20 years and his son was getting married. So I applied on my own online for myself and my wife in the month of March. And within 1 month, my wife's visa came through. I thought in a few days' time, mine would also come through. It didn't happen. Another 1 month goes, and then I get a mail that please furnish these additional details since you were in military service. And the details they asked for were really shocking. They say where all you have been posted, what were your roles at each of those postings in my 35 years of the service, who were my commanding officers, in which all operations I participated, what was my role in those operations, which were the other units who participated in those operations and what were their roles. This is the kind of information they had asked for. I found it ridiculous. I replied to them that it is not possible for me to furnish. I have been a air traffic control officer and I have been a Air Force police officer. And during that, I have not been found wanting on any of these things. I have not involved in any other untoward incident or activity. And so visa may be granted. This was about 5 months back. And since then, I haven't heard. I suppose, although I have not served in J&K, but I suppose that because I have been Air Force police officer and I had also been a pro-marshal presiding over the Air Force security, probably that's one of the reasons, like we see in media, that they are very averse to permit such people.
I want to make one thing very clear, because Colonel Bharadwaj, Colonel Kochhar and Air Commodore Thaakar are being very gentlemanly by saying that they had clarified that they have nothing untoward against them. They were not part of a counterinsurgency operations, etc., etc. Let me make it very clear. And Gaurav, correct me if I'm wrong here, that Canada has no business denying a visa on this basis to anyone. Let them be Rashtra Rifles, let them be Assam Rifles, let them operate in the Northeast, let them operate in Arunachal, let them operate in J&K. I don't care. How dare they have this policy, Gaurav?
Shiv, it is a flawed policy, but it is a policy that exists. And these are 3 veterans. There are several serving officers, there are several retired officers whose cases are still pending. Of course, visa is a sovereign right. It is Canada's right whether they want to give visa to a country, to a citizen of any country, or they want to deny it. And they use this as pressure tactics against India. Ambassador Vivek Karju had raised it when he was a secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. In fact, the Canadian envoy was summoned and given a dressing down but then, there isn't much leverage that a country has given this situation. So much so that Canada wants to know details the moment a veteran applies for a visa. They want to know the name of his commanding officer, the telephone number of his commanding officer, the years of posting in Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast, and operations participated in and activities done. They want to pin India down on alleged human rights cases, and India said there is no way. In fact, the Ministry of Defence and the Forces headquarters, they've issued directives that no such details are to be furnished by any officer. But then it depends on a veteran whether he wants a visa or not, and then it becomes an individual case. There are cases pending even today when such information is sought. But then it's Canada's sovereign right. Point one. Point two, Canada's attitude and double standards, Shiv.
Yes.
The manner in which they talk about human rights here, and the way Justin Trudeau's government cracked down on truckers, the world saw that, and the way their inaction against the Khalistani extremists and supporters, it just reeks of double standards. But then that's the way the dispensation in Canada is, Shiv.
This is, these are double standards of a most shocking variety. Am I to understand, are we to understand, Colonel Bharadwaj, then, that it's a hit and miss kind of thing? As someone who is a soldier or an officer of the Indian Armed Forces, among the most professional in the world, among the armed forces with the greatest degree of oversight in the world, operating in UN peacekeeping missions all across the world in the most dangerous zones, for such officers, it is a hit and miss to enter a place like Canada?
Absolutely. There is no laid down timelines. This is very, very important. If you want to deny it, that you spell it out that within, a certain number of days, you're going to say no, or you're going to say yes, or seek additional information. But I would also like to speak on behalf of some of the serving officers, probably
Yes.
who are not on the... Just imagine an officer who applies for a leave, and you know that the leave in a unit is not that one gets up and gets a leave. It's a whole setup in which the leave is worked out for all officers.
Yes.
If he doesn't get his visa on time, see the complete administrative fabric of a subunit where the officer can't go on leave, and when he gets his visa, he asks for leave. That time it's not possible. So it's going to affect to absolutely in depth the armed forces people who are serving now. Retired officers, yes, one can wait for a longer time, but there have been cases where people have had problems. And, some old person is there staying with a son or a daughter out there. They've called for that. That's a last wish, and the person is not able to get visa. He can't go and see an old ailing parent because
Yes.
the visa is not granted, and the old man passes off. So this is something which is very, very sad. What's happening, especially with the defense officers by the Canadian authorities.
Yes.
They should be a little more considerate.